So it's now been 1 week since Charlie Kirk was assassinated. It's still surreal to me that he has died, had become a martyr, and it's still like I'm still processing it. I really am. Mostly because I've never seen someone that I obviously never known on a personal level, but known about for years and have been following him and kind of seen him grow and develop over time from, a young kid to one of the most influential political figures on the right and having an instrumental part in winning Trump winning the election just, last November. Huge, very influential figure in American politics, and to just see someone who you've been following for years and someone who's not that much older than you as well, to just be gunned down like that and to see it unfold in real time, I have never seen. Like when you think of assassination, you think of it more like in a historical sense. Obviously, they do happen around the world. A lot of the time it happens, but it's like I think of like people in foreign countries being assassinated. I don't necessarily know who these people are or really have like as deep of a connection compared to someone like Charlie Kirk, who is an American, who is someone who I am a lot more familiar with their work. Like I remember Shinzo Abe, the Prime Minister of Japan, got assassinated a couple of years ago, and I was like stunned because things like that aren't supposed to happen in Japan. But also just like yeah, it was crazy like how that unfolded. But I also wasn't really familiar with Shinzo Abe, but with Charlie Kirk, it's like yeah, I knew exactly who he was, and I've been um, I wouldn't say a fan of his, but I also wasn't a hater of his either. Like I had nothing against him. I like people across different ideologies. Like I listen to everyone, whether left, right, center, whatever. Like I like a lot of different people. Like I don't think of the whole notion like I should only listen to people who agree with everything that I agree with, and to just live in my echo chamber and not engage with anything that kind of contradicts my own beliefs. Like I always want to have an open mind and to get my information from different people and different points of view. That's always how I viewed it. And Charlie Kirk, honestly, was a positive. He had a positive impact on what our republic is supposed to be all about, which is open discussion, freedom of speech, the First Amendment, and engaging civilly in dialogue with people who have completely different ideas than you do. But even if you don't necessarily reach a common understanding, or if you don't win the debate, I mean, Charlie Kirk was a good debater, and he was a good speaker, and he obviously was very talented. I mean, to get as far as he did, you had to have some kind of talent and ability, and just he was very charismatic as well. So I'm not gonna say, because there are a lot of people that preface it when people uh, eulogize Charlie Kirk or have anything to say following this tragic event. It's like, well, I didn't agree with most of what he said, but you shouldn't be political violence is not acceptable. I don't even think that's a necessary thing to predicate on. It's just like, yeah, a human life was lost. A father of two was murdered in front of his entire family. Like that's the thing that's worth talking about, not whether or not you personally agreed with the stuff that he said. And that's one thing. The other thing is just people literally dancing on his grave and celebrating and cheering and everything, and just all the the damage control is a good way to put it, and conspiracies like, oh, he wasn't actually part of the left, he actually was a conservative, he's a groiper. That's the thing that people keep saying, because he's he hated Charlie Kirk because he wasn't right wing enough. He had a transgender oh, but that transgender partner is not real, it's fake, it's made up by the FBI to promote hate against trans people. Well, the evidence is pretty clear of who this guy was, or is, because the shooter is still alive, and what his motives are. literally he was answering a question about trans shooters as he was being shot. Like, that was the last question he was answering before he was assassinated. So there was very clear from the beginning what the motivation was there. That was obviously deliberate, like the timing and everything. And yeah, so one thing I will say about that is how this person, and the text messages were released yesterday, which people are denying and saying that they're fake texts because it hurts their it really, because it makes their I guess their side look really bad. The fact that there is political violence being carried in their name, in the name of progressivism and trans rights and all these different things. Instead of acknowledging it and being like, this guy's fucking crazy and please, no one ever do this again, it's like, oh no, he actually wasn't any of those things, and it's some right wing, propaganda rather than the actual truth. So, they talk about Republicans constantly living in an alternate reality, but they often do that themselves when it doesn't fit their own narrative. That's just the way that people who are so entrenched in their own ideological it's part of their identity, like what they stand for, like whether Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, whatever ideological identity that you have for yourself, like that is not just part that, like their political identity and their personal identity is one and the same. So that's why they demonize, they vilify, they paint anyone who disagrees with them that's on the other team as the villain, because they truly believe that yeah, if you don't agree with everything that I agree with, if you have different beliefs, then yeah, you deserve to be gunned down, you deserve to die, you deserve to be silenced one way or another. By any means necessary, you need to be stopped. That's pretty much the consistent thing that I've been seeing. You know, Credit where it's due. All of the major, the Democratic politicians and the mainstream people that are actually in power that represent the Democratic Party have said a lot of good things. I think Bernie Sanders stood out above them all and gave a great speech that I agreed with everything he said there. Even AOC, I'm not even gonna say anything about her, because she said it was a tragic thing. This is why we need gun control. I mean, hey, it is what it is. I don't necessarily agree with that policy and that conclusion that she's drawn, but at least she didn't dance on his grave and say horrible things. Ilhan Omar, on the other hand, was the one that stood out, saying really heinous things about Charlie Kirk and essentially dancing on his grave. And yeah, while not outright saying, I'm glad that he's dead and he had it coming, pretty much all but said that in her remarks. But Ilhan Omar has proven over the years to just be a disgusting human being that is not worthy of holding office in Congress. But I think the irony in all of this is probably that this person, based on the text messages, was so set on killing Charlie Kirk because of his quote unquote hateful beliefs. He was spreading too much hate and he had to be stopped. Well, and specifically in the name of trans rights, because of the transgender partner and roommate, whatever you want to call this person that he was that he was romantically involved with. And he literally said, like, like protecting you. That's the whole point. Like, I'm protecting you, my love. That's what the text messages were saying. So the irony in all this, and obviously the person is, to even carry out a political assassination, you have to be mentally depraved and not necessarily thinking, entirely logically. But the irony here now is that there is more anti-transgender sentiment following the assassination. There's going to be more hate and more action taken against the transgender community than there would have been a week ago prior to this occurring. You know what I mean? So that's really the cruel irony in all of this, is that those who are dancing on Charlie Kirk's grave, those who are against everything that he stands for, his death is actually going to make things a lot worse and a lot harder for all of those people. And it's not going to make the world a better place. I mean, it already seems to be much worse than it was last week. And I'm just gonna say, like, it was horrific because I did see the video, and before it was he was confirmed dead, I knew that he was dead. And just seeing all that unfold in real time, I was about to go to sleep, right? Because I had work, because I worked the night shift. So it was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours before work, and then all this stuff came out, was happening in real time. I think I popped up Reddit, said breaking news, Charlie Kirk shot. And I'm like, holy shit. And then sure enough, I go on X and it was whew, yeah, it was definitely something. And I still just keep reliving that in my head over and over again. And I think that is one thing that is going to stay in my memory for as long as I live, is just seeing uh, him talking and having the microphone in his hand, and suddenly it's very tragic, and it's horrible, and it makes me sick to my stomach. It really does, like, more than anything else. Like, the fact that something like this was able to happen in America in in 2025. You know what I mean? Like, it really is just surreal. It still is, like, that like, someone I've been following for so many is now suddenly a martyr and is a symbol for for free speech. He's a like, the thing is, his platform and his voice is amplified so much more in death than it ever would have, like, even if he was alive and politically active for another 50 years. Like, this really is like something, like, would people be talking about Martin Luther King Jr. today if he weren't assassinated? John F. Kennedy? I don't think so. I think they would have been rather, well, especially JFK would have been rather insignificant figures in history, because JFK, was, I mean, it's hard to really judge what his presidency would have become because it was cut short, to be fair. But that is typically, like, the thing that you see throughout history, is that, yeah, when someone is gunned down for their for fighting for what they believe in and for what they stand for, those beliefs and those ideas grow even more than they ever would have before. So they created a martyr. They definitely did more damage to their movement than, I mean, when I see they, I mean, obviously, it was one person that acted on this, but at the same time, there's so many people, not just on the internet, but in real life, that I know of, that were celebrating this and saying that he had it coming. He was a horrible human being because he had beliefs that I disagreed with. Essentially, is what they're saying, and it really puts things into context, because it's like, yeah, if you have any of these beliefs that Charlie Kirk had, whether we're talking about his religious convictions, his anti-trans beliefs, his anti-DEI, pretty much, like, everything that he talked about, though, like, his entire platform, his entire belief system, is that of a mainstream conservative, not of a fringe Richard Spencer, David Duke type person who is pretty much like white power, white nationalism. That's not what Charlie Kirk was. Despite people wanting to paint a picture that way and to demonize him and to, talk about how he was this evil person, and misquoting him, and or like partially quoting him and not giving the full context, to make him out to look like the worst person imaginable in order to fit their agenda and to justify murder. Um, it really did change the way that I view the left, in a way that I never thought possible. Because now it's just running in the back of my head that these people celebrate the death of their political opponents and are honestly depraved individuals. And obviously, that's not fair to put, like, everyone who identifies on the left in that box, but there are a lot more people that hold these beliefs, that celebrate violence, that celebrate murder, than I honestly thought that there were in our society. And that is a huge problem. JD Vance, his speech that he gave while he was hosting the Charlie Kirk podcast, while he was guest hosting, when he said that there is no unity with people that celebrate murder and celebrate political violence, he was absolutely right. And that was a very powerful speech. And I agreed with everything that he said there. And it's true. So when it comes down to like people getting fired and all these different things happening and how conservatives are kind of just losing their mind over this, I completely understand, because now you have in the back of your head like my cousin, my brother, my coworker, my friend, these people in my life. If I die, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bullet to the neck, but if you die for any reason, are they going to be like, yeah, I'm glad that he's dead because of certain political positions that he had that I disagreed with? Seems like the answer to that is yes. And that's something that I honestly thought about for a while, like throughout my life, since I first became politically active over a decade ago. I lost a lot of friendships over politics because I'd make a Facebook post or I would like have a real life discussion, debate, whatever you want to call it, about certain social topics, and it would just suddenly devolve into name calling and, oh, you're a racist, you're a misogynist, you're this and you're that, and you're just a scumbag, you're an evil person. And it's just like, wow. So I always knew there was animosity and hatred. Like, they don't equate like you disagreeing with them as it just being a good faith argument or debate, which is what our our system is supposed to be based on. No, it's just like, yeah, no, go fuck yourself. You are subhuman now. You are not worth anything anymore. And it could be someone that you've had, in a lot of cases for me, people that I've had history with for years and years and years and years. I grew up with, like, from like elementary school all the way to high school. Suddenly I'm not worth anything anymore because we have a political disagreement. So that was eye opening. And I thought, like, wow, like this is really, like, I thought in 2015 this is the worst that politics has ever been. I know, like, it wasn't always this bad as far as like being able to actually like have a conversation with people and uh, to at least like find some kind of common ground, or at least like that we're all humans that are worth be like that are worth life. You know what I mean? That actually have equal value. No, and it's just so much worse now. It really is. So I don't know what to make of. I'm still honestly in the. I'm still processing everything that happened. Uh, it's yeah, it was one of the darkest days in America in my lifetime, at least. Because America has a 250-year history, and there have been a lot of dark days, and definitely darker days. But this honestly makes me worry, like, less about the moment itself, which was disgusting and horrific, but more so about, like, I think this is going to result in there being more violence and more escalation and more civil unrest, and like it's going to lead further to our country falling apart, and there will be darker days ahead as a result. And I think that's one thing that those on the left and the right can agree on, uh, even if it's for different reasons and for different ways that that's going to happen. But all I'll say is rest in peace to Charlie Kirk. I can't say that I honestly, I don't even know what to say anymore. I honestly, there's never been a more embarrassing time in like that I could think of to be associated with the left and to be a Democrat, to be a liberal, to be a progressive, because any moderate person who seeing all this unfold, right, regardless of the violent act itself, that a prominent right wing figure was murdered and gunned down because the person didn't like what he had to say. It's more so the fallout from that and the grave dancing and the dehumanizing aspect of it. Like, if you're someone who's on the center and you see the conservatives, and there has been a lot of overreact, like we're at war and a lot of like bad rhetoric on the right, sure, that is definitely true. But on the left side of things, it's just straight up depravity, and there is no other way to put it. Just absolute insanity. Something I honestly did not expect. The way that many folks have reacted to this. Um, and I mean, people like Destiny and Vosh that I I did follow for quite some time, and I agreed with a lot of stuff that they said, but I always knew like that they were the type that would support something like this happening and not have any problem with it. Uh, yeah, I'm very disappointed by them as well, and a lot of political commentators on the left. I would say most of the ones that I've seen saying, "Well, we need to talk about his hateful ideas and how how this needs to be stopped and how these ideas need to be challenged and so on and so forth." And it's just like, yeah, this is like half the country that believes in most, if not all, the stuff that Charlie Kirk believes in. He was not a fringe person. And that being said, if someone like a David Duke or a Richard Spencer or a Nick Fuentes was assassinated, I would condemn that as well. And I would not focus that energy on what that person believed in and to essentially justify their death without outright saying it. I would be more like would put that aside and be like, we need to end political violence because that is not the way that we solve our differences. Uh, is by gunning down the opposite. You know what I mean? Like it seems like common sense, but clearly, I have been proven wrong with that. So that's been the biggest takeaway. It completely changes the way that I view the people around me, the people who differ from me politically and have different, different stances on certain things. Uh, there was this person who I thought was one of the nicest people I've ever met. Who, as soon as the whole Charlie Kirk thing happened, said, "Well, that's what you get for being a piece of shit." So it's completely warped my worldview and my view of other people, and that's honestly the biggest impact that it ended up having to me, rather than like feeling the loss itself, which obviously it did make me really sad that he died. Uh, as much as I wasn't like a huge fan of his or a big follower of his, it doesn't matter. Like the little girl was running to him because she was scared. You know what I mean? Like it's it's horrible. And there's still a lot left to process, and there's still a lot that's going to happen as a result of this. And I hope that there's no more violence. But typically, when stuff like this happens, it escalates further and further and further and further till we reach a breaking point. And I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. It's very scary to be an American right now, for sure. And I honestly don't know where we go from here.